Okay, you're ready.
Thank you. Welcome to the Architecture Review Commission meeting for December 17th, 2020. I'll read the following regarding COVID. Determination of the Architecture Review Commission Chair concerning an anchor location. Pursuant to Utah Code ANN.52-4-2074, the chair or acting chair of the Cottonwood Heights Architectural Review Commission hereby determines that conducting this Architectural Review Commission meeting at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. The World Health Organization, the President of the United States, the Governor of Utah, the Salt Lake County Mayor and Health Department, and the Mayor of this city have all recognized that a global pandemic exists related to the new strain of the coronavirus named SARS-CoV-2. Due to the state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the location. Accordingly, to information from state epidemiologists or epidemiology experts, Utah is currently in an accelerated phase, which has the potential to overwhelm the state's healthcare system. And I will sign that once it's finally sent to me. So with that, welcome. We need to acknowledge, does anybody have any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest to disclose regarding the items on the agenda?
No.
Thank you. With that, we will proceed since there are none. We have one discussion item on the agenda. It's project WT-20-001, an action on request by SQF LLC for a certificate of design compliance for two new small cell facilities located in the city right-of-way. This is a continuation from the November 19th, 2020 Architecture Review Commission meeting. So with that, I'll turn the time over to staff for their report. Do we need to let the applicant into the meeting?
Sure, I'll add in the applicant and then I have a brief report to share. Okay, can you all see the screen? Great. So as you mentioned, our application today is a continuation from a project that this commission reviewed last month. Brief summary as a reminder and for anyone who may be listening, it's an application for two new small cell facilities in the public right-of-way. These are 4G, 5G cell phone towers. They're smaller than the typical wireless facilities that we have seen serve a smaller area and are located along streets in the public right-of-way. To remind you the discussion that we had from last month, these are my notes. Comments were first for staff to review the potential for a small cell and streetlight master plan. That is something that we added it to our project list, something that I do think is a great suggestion and something that we need to work on. So we will be proceeding with that. Unfortunately, though, the applications that we've already received before adopting any sort of master plan, we can't hold them to a future plan, but it is something that we do want to work on for all future applications, and we will keep you posted as we do that. The suggestions that were made by the commission for this application were for the applicant to explore feasibility of redesigning the facilities with a few suggestions. One, to add a decorative base to match the city streetlights, to add a fluted element to the pole, to add an additional light fixture over the sidewalk, and then to include equipment inside the pole rather than outside wherever possible. So since the last meeting, we've got the two locations. So the first one, 1869 East Fort Union. This one is located behind the sidewalk, so it's just got the one light fixture. There's the comment for the second light fixture doesn't apply in this location, but as you can see, I've tried to highlight the changes that are proposed. So the red circles show what was previously shown on the plans as future antennas. Those have been removed. You can see that that shows a kind of a sleeker pole. And then in green on the December design, you can see that they've added a decorative base. They are working with our streetlight manufacturers to get one that matches the specs of our current streetlights and get the city logo on it. And then moving to the other location, 7069 South Highland, right out in front of the new Starbucks building. This one, as you can see in red, also some of that additional equipment that was previously shown has been removed. And in the new design, we have a secondary light fixture so that there's one over the street and one over the sidewalk, and then the base again. So to give a little bit of context, some of the discussion last month revolved around the street light that's just to the north in front of the Zions Bank on Highland Drive. This one, as you can see from this street view image, has the taller light over the street and then a shorter one over the sidewalk. The applicant is proposing a design that has just the two fixtures at a taller height. I've included in your packet their response about why that was their choice. It essentially allows them to reserve space for equipment in the future, but we can let them get into that with you. I did want to point out, though, that the street light in front of the Zions Bank is a little bit off from what our typical design is, our typical specs for this sort of a street light on an arterial. Typically, we have the taller fixture at about 25 feet, and then the one over the pedestrian side, the arm is supposed to be right here at about 16 feet. In this case, I was curious because it looks low. I actually went out and measured, and this is about only at about 12 feet. And so with this hanging down, it's only about 9 feet. So it's not quite a match to our current standards. The base on this one also, just as a side note, does not include the city name or logo. So I think this was just probably an older project before we adopted our current design specs. The design, ultimately, how we do it, whether we do a second fixture or not, whether it's they're both at that higher height or one lower, is a design question. So as staff, we didn't make any sort of a recommendation. We'll leave that up to you to decide what you'd like to see. Just wanted to kind of point out a few things so that you have an idea of what's there and what's being proposed. So with that, we've kept the same recommendations that we're recommending conditions for the paint to match, to make sure we did add to include the city logo, since they'll be adding that decorative base. And then for the lights to meet our lighting requirements for lumens, Kelvin, and then to obtain the correct permits for each building permit and street permit. So with that, that's
Cool.
just your brief update for you, but I'm happy to answer questions or pull up any of the documents. And then I think we've got the applicant on the line as well, if you have questions for him.
So I've got a couple of questions for staff. So as I understand it, then they haven't put any of the elements inside the pole. They've just taken off the antennas for future additional carriers. Is that correct?
Right.
So we can probably anticipate that at some point, someone, the applicant or someone else, may come and request additional antennas be placed on the pole.
That's right. Yeah. Similar to what we did last month with that other application. Future
And
designs will have to come back to this commission.
that was my question. So they'll have to come back. And then the second question I have is, one of our recommendations was a fluted pole. Do you know where that recommendation went?
I did not follow up on that one, so I'd probably defer to the applicant.
The comment that you put there said a fluted element, and our standard pole has flutes all the way up, but it looks like the base is fluted on this one. I don't know what the right answer is, but I was kind of hoping all those boxes sticking out at about 10 feet would end up inside somehow. As far as the lights go up higher, I kind of like them both at the same elevation better than staggered. As long as they're getting the right light output, right, like they're functioning properly. Those are my comments.
So my perspective on the lights, I think the existing light pole is the light, the pedestrian light over the sidewalk is way too low. It should be higher. I do think there's some value to bringing it down so that there is some pedestrian scale to it, but aesthetically, I think having the two lights at the same level aesthetically feels better, personally.
Yeah. It'll throw wider light out too when it's up higher.
Yeah.
Not as concentrated, but you see the street. That's the only pole within sight, right?
I
So,
think
I don't
there
know.
is one. I didn't grab a picture of it, but if you cross through the intersection in front of Dan's where they redid the sidewalk there, I think they added one.
I exaggerated just a little bit, but
Sure.
it's not like we have an even number of these and we're going to get an even light across or a rhythm of this. So I think by having it up higher, it spreads the light out a little bit more instead of having a hot spot. But I think it's probably better, and they do look better together. So maybe this is a question for the applicant.
So let's invite the applicant to come in, and if they have anything else they want to add to the staff report, and then we can ask them questions.
Is he there already? Is that Paul?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I don't know if you can see me. I can't, I don't know that you do need to see me, but thanks, Andy, and thanks, commissioners, for taking this time here tonight to kind of go over this project some more. I think Andy did a good job kind of summarizing some of the revisions that we've made to the project. Like he had said, we we added the light to both. Well, we added the second light to this one here at 7069, and then we added the one light. Or actually, I'm getting the addresses mixed up. No, the second light here at 7069, and then we added the light also on the one on East Fort Union Boulevard.
Now, why is it better not to have two lights on the other one?
Why are we not proposing two on the other one? Is the question?
Yeah.
Because the second light is for the sidewalk. So when you're in the parking strip between the street and the sidewalk, then that makes sense to have two lights, one for the street, one for the sidewalk. The pole that we're proposing on East Fort Union Boulevard,
Yeah, I see.
no parking strips. So the one light is all you need to get both the sidewalk and the street. Yeah. So, and then we're working with Mountain States Lighting on that pole base. And I think that we have a design, and I had sent Andy kind of a PDF showing their on Madison base.
It's on one of those slides, right? The green.
Yep. Yeah. So, so we'll be able to include that into the design. And then we removed the future and 5G antennas and radio equipment shrouds. Originally, we wanted to show that stuff because we're proposing, of course, that this pole be built to accommodate future co-locators on there to reduce the total need for new poles in the right of way. But it's become apparent that a future co-locator would need to go back to you guys. And so instead of showing some hypothetical antennas and radio equipment shrouds on here, we just remove that, and those additions would be would come to you guys at a later date to review that design, similar to how Extenet had done it at last month's meeting. Now the pole remains the same. We had, we discussed integrating the equipment within the pole. That would result in a much wider pole. So in order to fit the stuff inside of the pole gets out to 12 inches at least in width. So it becomes a much beefier looking pole to hide everything inside. And it was kind of what I was hearing from you guys at the previous meeting was that you wanted it to get to look more similar to your lights, to these street light poles, the decorative street light poles. So try to keep the diameter narrower. So we're proposing to stay with the same diameter. Mountain States Lighting, their pole diameter is narrower, but we wanted to stick with our pole because for structural purposes, in order to ensure that it could support the wireless facilities that we anticipate on this pole. Their pole is Mountain States Lighting pole tapers from 7 inches to 4.5 inches at the top. This one is 8. I think it's actually 8 5/8 inches, and it doesn't taper. So that's kind of a little explanation. We'd explored the varying different poles, and we felt like the proposed pole is a good compromise to both structurally support the equipment and get closer to the diameter of the decorative street lights that you guys have. So that's kind of where we're at with these two poles and the changes. And of course, I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you might have.
So what do the rest of you guys think? I think I would probably rather see a 12-inch pole instead of an 8-inch pole if it got the stuff inside.
I'll add one more thing. If you go to that design, I don't know if we'll be able to get the decorative base on it because then you're so wide, that decorative base. It does come, so these integrated poles, that's what they're called, where everything's integrated. They're 12-inch diameter. However, the base is a 24-inch diameter is how they come. So the base doesn't look like the fluted, like the Madison style base that you guys have on the decorative poles. It's a different, it's still decorative, but it's not fluted and it doesn't look like this base here.
So you're saying, when you say the base, you're saying the very bottom of that piece.
Yeah.
Looking.
exactly. Yeah.
Right now it's 24 inches. Says max
Yeah, it
pole.
flares out to 24 on this one. The integrated poles where everything's integrated with inside, it's like it's 24 inches wide, and that goes like straight up, and it sits a few feet tall at 24 inches wide.
So this one says you can get an 11-inch pole, max pole outer diameter, 11 inches. If you move up to that, can you get your equipment inside?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd ask the question, and they need to be, the way they manufacture them, they're 12 inches. Not the 11 inches that this space is able to accommodate.
Right.
So the other pole, if it were the integrated, you're saying it would have, at the base, it would have a 24-inch post or pole that comes up, and then at some place it steps down to a 12-inch?
Yeah, so the base is 24 inches wide, and that sits a few feet high, and then and then it goes to the 12 inches wide on the rest of the way up. Yeah, so that's, and I'm not sure exactly how high it sits, but that base sits a few feet tall, like 3 or 4 feet high. And that's where a lot of the equipment goes, inside there.
So I like having the fluted base with the narrower pole. I don't mind that at all, but what I don't want to see on the pole, I'll just be frank, is a bunch of other antennas on the outside of the pole at a future date. You know, I kind of feel like nothing has really changed on this application except for we put the fluted base on the bottom of it and added the lights. But as far as the design of the pole, nothing has changed. And so I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a shell game of, you know, okay, we're going to show it without all the carriers on it, and then we'll come back and get them to approve it once it's in for all the carriers. And I would just say my personal opinion is I'm going to be very resistant to approve a bunch of carriers being put on the posts at a future date. When we could have had a larger pole that would accommodate those inside of the pole and not had it so visually intrusive.
So you would prefer the integrated, like the fatter pole would be your preference then?
If we're going to come back and put a bunch of equipment, I guess the question is, do all those antennas go, you know, the future antennas go inside the pole if it's a fatter pole?
Yeah, so there's a canister at the top that would accommodate those antennas. That's what it's designed for, yeah.
So
It's hard to say without seeing it, but I do think the fluted base, you know, adds a lot to soften the pole. It makes it look more aesthetic than it does industrial. Steve?
I was just wondering, you know, it talks about the canister on top. Is that still 12 inches or is it bigger?
On an integrated style pole,
Yeah.
it is, it's either 12 inches or it could flare out to slightly larger than that. I'm trying to see if I can find like a plan for one in a different jurisdiction. And we'd gone to a different jurisdiction with that pole, and then they didn't like it. They said it was too big. So, I mean, it's some like it, some don't. So I can, if you'd like, if I can figure it out, I can try and share my screen.
Yeah, I think that I made you a panelist, so I think, see if that will allow you to share.
I don't know if he's on the call. Looks like we may have
I
dropped him.
think it muted
Yeah.
when I switched over. Are you still there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still here. So there's my video now. So I apologize for that. How do I share the screen though? I'm looking around here.
It should be, for me, it's on the bottom. There's participants and then share.
Uh-huh. Oh, share screen right there. Bring it right in the middle. And share. Thanks for your patience on that one. You're probably going to hear my dog in the background now. I apologize for that. But so here, if you can see that, can you see that where I'm kind of my cursor over this pole here? So this is kind of like a integrated style pole where you have the pole base. Okay, here it sits 5 feet high. And then you have the pole 12-inch diameter, and then you have the 16-inch diameter canisters at the top that house the antennas. And then you have the equipment down here. There's also another equipment area up here, it looks like. Looks like the base, this particular model is a 20-inch diameter base, it looks like at the bottom here. There's a different one also, a different style from a different manufacturer. It looks similar to this, but yeah, this is kind of what an integrated pole typically looks like.
I personally would much rather see an integrated pole like this with the light fixtures on it. I think that would be a much more aesthetic and much less industrial than, you know, just starting to attach a bunch of boxes and panels and things to the pole.
I agree. How wide is this pole?
12-inch diameter, perhaps 12 3/4, it looks like. That's this particular model. There's another manufacturer that's probably at 12 inches. I think the dimensions I gave you earlier came from a different manufacturer, but it looks similar to this. We'd probably go with the other one. There's a different pole that looks similar to this that we'd probably go with. This is for concepts. This kind of shows you what they look like.
So the top of the base, it looks like there's some architectural detailing in that, like a cap that then tapers down.
Yeah, is it up here? Is that what we're talking about?
No, the top of the base.
Oh, the top of the base.
Bottom of
Yeah.
the pole. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
And I think that little bit of detail adds a lot.
Okay. Yeah, they do design these, you know, they try to make them look all right. So it was it was my understanding. I thought you guys wanted to be more like your decorative lights, the narrower poles, and this just gets wider. So we thought that we would kind of strike a balance and go with the 8-inch diameter pole that we were proposing.
So I'll remind the commission members that with only 3 of us at the meeting, we need a unanimous vote to be able to approve something. So we probably ought to have enough discussion that when a motion is made, we're all on board with the motion.
Okay. What are your thoughts, Steve?
I'm thinking that the 12 inches and a 20-inch base, it's a different animal than a light pole. And so my feeling is if it's a choice of, you know, whether you want the small one with equipment on it. And I think I agree that I would prefer seeing this, even though it doesn't have the city fluted base on it, it's still going to have a substantial base. And if the base ends up fluted at the top of the base into the pole so that it looks proper, I'd probably approve that. Because I think it's better to have that stuff inside. I agree with that.
And we can still put the light fixture hanging off the side, Paul.
Yeah, I know you can do, I've seen lights. This is the other pole, by the way.
I like that one better.
I do too.
Yeah.
And this is their preferred, this is SQF's preferred integrated pole if they were to do one. So I'm glad you like it better, but they have attached lights. Typically you'll see a Cobra style light attached. That's what I've seen. Now, I know you have your decorative style light. I'd have to ask, I'd have to find out if it's engineered to support something like that.
So I would support this type of a pole with a city, the decorative light that is consistent with the city's design on the pole. That would be my preference, with it painted black so that it looks like a light pole, a thick light pole. This pole's tall, and so the 12 inches doesn't bother me as much because the height of the pole is so high.
Now, does that have a bigger shroud at the top? It looks like it's a taller shroud.
I'm not sure if it calls out the same detail as the previous pole. There, so this is a 12-inch, 12-inch diameter pole. It does flare out. I don't know what the actual dimension is of this, but it's probably similar to the 16 inches. It's probably like an industry standard to be able to fit the antennas in. I apologize, my wife's on a call too.
Hey,
COVID, we
Eli.
understand, man.
Eli.
Yeah. Busy night here.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I thought
So
I was muted when I yelled there, but
24-inch base here, it looks like.
trying to get the piano to stop.
Now, I'm not sure if this is what we've done this elsewhere. I'm not sure if, I'll have to go to the folks back at SQF to see if this is something they could do at this location.
So,
Just of course, it goes.
does anybody have any more questions or discussion? I would like to see a motion that we approve it with this pole and the decorative lights.
I am tone deaf.
That's the city standard and painted black.
Now, if it turns out that we can't attach a light for whatever reason, structural reasons, what would that, is that something that we could,
Except, you know what they know, Shirley?
that could be accepted, or what sort of wiggle room do we have there?
It's jelly.
I personally think the light is really important.
Yeah.
That's the thing that takes it away from being an industrial pole to being something that is part of the urban vernacular.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too.
I think you probably have to come back if we can't get a light.
Yeah. So if we were to approve it with those lights and then it turns out for whatever reason, the lights are a problem, we'd have to come back to you guys. Is that how it works?
Yeah,
I think so.
I hate to do that.
Yes, you're wrong.
Yeah, I think that would be a modification to what was approved, and we'd consider that a significant change, so bring it back to the commission for review.
So do you need a motion for that?
I do. I need one of you to provide a motion and the other to give a second.
Second.
I'll make it. I move to issue, how would you call it, a request to,
There's some language in the, can you pull that up, Andy?
Sure, yeah, let me switch out. Sorry about that.
I've got some language, but it's for approval.
Well, I would recommend that we make a motion to approve it with
Okay.
the stipulation.
I move to issue a certificate of design compliance for project WT-20-001, subject to the recommendations discussed, that it incorporates streetlights and as outlined by our discussion today, and then bring it back to us in the next meeting in January.
So Steve, for clarification, are you talking about the motion would be the 12-inch pole with the equipment integrated inside the pole and the
I'm
base
sorry.
feature?
Yes, I should have added that.
And are you also stipulating that it must be painted with a textured black paint to match the city street lights and include?
Yeah, that's more specific. I was sort of thinking that the recommendation of the conditions would cover that, but yes, it needs to be black. It needs to be all of those things that we've talked about.
So the first staff recommendation indicates that the pole would include the city logo. And I don't know if that's something they can do on that pole. I would think you'd have to not require that.
I think that's right. And I think if the city wants that bad, they can put a plaque on it.
Okay, and then I'm assuming you're specifying that it's the city's streetlights as identified by staff?
Correct.
And then they need to obtain a building permit and right-of-way permit from the city.
Correct.
Okay, so we
mentioned-
have a,
Hang on, you mentioned to bring it back in January. I'm assuming that we're not doing that if they follow the,
I guess if they follow those conditions, we could approve it without a follow-up.
okay.
Yeah, amend that. I think that's correct.
Okay,
okay, so let me restate what I understand. So we have a motion to issue a certificate of design compliance for the project using a 12-inch pole with a 24-inch base as presented by the applicant. And it would be painted black with a textured black paint to match the city street lights. It would use the street lighting as identified in the recommendations that match the city street lights, and they would need to obtain a building permit and right-of-way permit from the city for each location prior to construction.
so they have not submitted that other poll. Is there a brand or a product number or something we can reference so that we know we're getting the same thing that we were looking at? Oh,
I am looking on here. Okay, Raycap stealth integrated metal light pole.
so we had the Raycap integrated light pole. That
Yeah, they call it an integrated light pole. The one I showed you didn't have a
If
light.
they let us
That's
start a
usually for
flame
like a
just for our
Cobra style
group, I
light.
mean, we can do the whole
They do
world.
have a job number here too. I'm not sure if that's the model number or what that exactly means. Would you like that number? I can give it to you.
Yeah, and maybe we ought to have Andy take a screenshot or something of that, and that becomes the record.
Yeah, that works too. If you'd like me to re-share.
We're all complicating this so much.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I mean, it's very convenient in some ways and challenging in others, right?
Uh-huh.
Here, I share the screen here. You cannot start screen share while the other, okay.
Go ahead.
Share. Okay, I was just gonna kind of clean up some of this stuff here. I kind of zoom in once or twice. And of course, the pole heights and stuff, they may stay at these pole heights. This might be, well, I'm not sure how much leeway they have in the pole heights. They could probably modify it to get to what we're proposing.
The share is still not showing for me.
It's not showing it, okay. Oh, I need to click right down here. Okay. Is that working now?
Yes.
Yes.
So does that summarize your your motion, Steve? We put those things in there.
Yeah, I think so. I think that does, because the bigger pole houses the equipment. And that was the reason to go to the bigger pole. I don't think that needs to be stated. That's been stated.
And we mean 12 inches by that,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming in and working with us on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Sorry it's so difficult.
Yeah, it's yeah, I appreciate you guys' time on this and kind of working on it too. And I'll talk to the folks at SQF. Hopefully they can get those lights on there like you liked. So.
That'd be great.
Commissioners, can I ask one point of clarification before we move on?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we get the right information when I type this up, but we want the lights to match the city specs. You were okay with having the two lights on the Highland Drive location, both at the same height?
I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, okay, then we will go with that. And the one light fixture on the Fort Union.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think I've got everything. Thanks.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, we will move to our consent agenda, which is item 3.0, specifically 3.1, approval of the minutes for the December 17, 2020 meeting. The consent agenda is that the Architectural Review Commission will move to approve the minutes of December 17, 2020 after the following process is met. The recorder will prepare the minutes and email them to each member of the commission. The members will have 5 days to review the minutes and provide any changes to the recorder. If after 5 days there are no changes, the minutes will stand approved. If there are changes, the process will be followed until the changes are made and the commission agrees, at which time the minutes shall be deemed approved. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yeah. Do we have the model language there? I'm looking on the
I think since I just read it, all you have to do is say that you move to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Steve, did you say aye?
I did.
Thank you. With that, I just need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank
care,
you very
everyone.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
You do.
Have a great Merry Christmas and thanks for all you guys do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.